This video is sponsored by Ironweld, a new miniature gaming event held in Wakefield, Massachusetts, the weekend of May 27th and 28th. More about them later in the video. What's up, folks? Welcome back to TacticalTortoise. My name is Trevi, and it's time for another 40k tournament tech talk. This is the Warhammer 40k video series where I take a winning list from an event, break it down, talk about the event that it won at, and talk about all of the lists that it played against to get to its #1 position. And today we have a pretty special episode. One thing that I always see in the comment sections of these videos, and anytime I do list breakdowns on the channel, is a complaint about a general lack of Death Guard. Death Guard have been in an unfortunate place since Arcs of Omen. They got a couple nerfs, got a few points breaks, but didn't really feel like it changed too much. However, the loss of Armor of Contempt elsewhere in the metagame has actually kept them relatively competitive, although they haven't seen much success so far. That said, this episode we are going to be talking about Death Guard because Garrett Stacy from Watchers in the Dark actually went 5-0 at the Cagbash Grand Tournament. The reason that this is a special episode is because Garrett invited me onto his YouTube channel a couple weeks ago to do a podcast, and so I decided to return the favor and interview him. So we're going to get a lot of insights from the player himself when talking about this list and the exact games that it plays. So we don't have to worry about my prognostication. We're going to get it directly from the Poxwalker's mouth. Go check out Watchers in the Dark over on YouTube. I will throw a link down to their channel in the video description and pinned comment. Big thanks to Garrett for coming on and talking about his games, and let's dive right into it. Let me get my crystal ball and call me a psychic, because I'm about to make a bold prediction here. Which is that if you're watching this video about Warhammer tournaments, you probably enjoy miniature gaming tournaments yourself. And if you're looking for one to go to in the next couple months, oh boy, have I got news for you. Because this video is sponsored by Ironweld, a new event run by the folks over at Wicked Dicey. Ironweld is going to be a cross-denominational miniature gaming extravaganza run on the weekend of May 27th and 28th. It'll have events and seminars for games of all types, including Star Wars Legion, MCP, Conquest, Battletech, Malifaux, and many more. But of course, the headliners are GT level events for both Warhammer 40k and Age of Sigmar. The Wicked Dicey crew put on Everwinter this past December, an event for which I streamed most of the 40k GT, so I can say with experience that the crew puts on some incredible shows, and Ironweld promises to be even bigger and better. This convention is even being held near my neck of the woods in Wakefield, Massachusetts. There's awesome access, good parking for folks who are driving in, and a lot of awesome local activities. So clear out the weekend of May 27th and 28th and check out wickeddicey.com/Ironweld to get your ticket today. The Cagbash event was a 67-player GT being held in Hamilton, Ohio. This one used US Open terrain layouts, so these are the big bricks of terrain with line of sight blocking elements on most of them. The big benefit here, especially for Death Guard, as a relatively infantry-focused army that usually relies on big bricks of Terminators and Plague Marines with high armor saves, damage reduction, hit penalties, is that there are typically a lot of light cover available on these layouts. Those huge bricks of terrain give you enormous areas of the table that you can potentially be in light cover for and also be out of line of sight of your opponent. So even indirect fire is going to suffer severely shooting into these defensive positions. That certainly helps an army like the Death Guard list that we're talking about today that is highly focused on these high resilience infantry units. It was bringing a Death Guard Demon Prince with the Plague Skull of Glothila, the relic that can be thrown at a unit once per game to do a boatload of mortal wounds, alongside 2 Malignant Plague Casters, one of them with a bit of a funny upgrade.
The list has a mistake in it, though, that I caught the day of the event because I made the list. My Foul Blightspawn does not have a pathogen upgrade on him. He's supposed to have the real one, and it's on my Psyker, I believe. I played it that weekend because I messed up and I already submitted it, and I was like, oh no, I just rolled with that. So that felt pretty bad.
The 2 Malignant Plague Casters are pretty interesting. They can dump a lot of mortal wounds. Between the 2 Plague Casters potentially doing their Pestilent Fallout to do additional mortal wounds on top of their casts and just smiting, since both of them have identical psychic powers, meaning that they're able to trade off responsibility for casting one or the other, you can actually do a pretty reasonable amount of damage with these 2 guys.
The 2 Plaguecasters, I have them with the same spells, and that's really mostly because my Plaguecasters are super... Like, I want the option to take a Psychic secondary, but this just being able to cast Smite with them is also just great. Cast Smite with one of each, and then have Miasma, Pestilence, and Pure Test of Vitality. is just invaluable with, especially with the Terminator. Especially if somebody is able to, like, Yannari is able to snipe them, just list with a bunch of snipe. Anything could go wrong and you lose one. It's invaluable to have both those spells still around.
They are supporting 2 small units of Plague Marines, just 5 apiece, with a variety of special weapons, 2 units of Poxwalkers for support, a big brick of Blightlord Terminators, one of the focal points of the list. These guys are all kitted out with either Combi Bolters or Flails. The Combi Bolters are then supported even further by the Tallyman, who has the Tollkeeper Relic, giving that unit exploding 6s to hit with its ranged attacks, and he gives them +1 to hit with his own effect. We also have a Foul Blightspawn with Revolting Stench Vats. This guy can force enemies to and stops them from counting as charging, meaning that if he's embedded inside the Blightlord Terminator unit, any enemies charging into them are going to lose their ability to fight first and most charge activated effects. Things like Shock Assault are going to turn off if you charge into the range of that Foul Blightspawn. So if you are a very aggressive focused melee army, you have very little way to actually kill those Blightlord Terminators, especially since, unless you have your own Fight Last effect, the defending player will choose the first non-charging unit to activate, so those Blightlord Terminators get to hit you even before you swing at them. Now, further backing up that enormous Death Star are 3 Fetid Bloat Drones. These guys are relatively fast and have a pretty high damage output and the ability to heroically intervene for a CP. This lets them compete for enemy objectives and clear enemy chaff infantry with the best of them, and represent one of the few fast units, or at least relatively fast, in the Death Guard Codex, which can certainly shore up the weakness of that big Terminator squad being only move 5. Alongside that is some ranged firepower being delivered by 3 Plague Burst Crawlers. These guys are probably most excited about the change to Armor of Contempt, given that they are going to be suffering the indirect fire penalty a lot of times, shooting their big mortars at people, especially if you're out of line of sight. They're going to suffer -1 ballistic skill, and your armor save is going to be increased, but no longer are you also reducing their armor penetration value, which means they actually have a pretty decent chance of killing enemy infantry. Although, the light cover from the US Open layout certainly helps enemies defend against that. But for the most part, the Plague Burst Crawlers also just fire a bunch of shots in direct line of sight, so they don't actually need to be relying entirely on their mortars to do massive damage.
It's real simple. If there's a 5 objective mission, you're going to pick the middle objective, and you're going to walk at it with Terminators and like a unit of Poxwalkers. And the Poxwalkers are just doing that, and all of the characters are directly bodyguarded by the Terminators, with the Fight Last guy sitting in the middle. And you're going to walk your other 2 units of Plague Marines at that objective with like a drone maybe. This is where the decision making comes in. You either put a drone in the 2 Plague Marines walking towards that objective, or you put all 3 drones and the Demon Prince together and you go towards the other flank. Or you just put 2 drones with the Demon Prince if you think they're going to survive a little bit and make it to combat. You're going to put the 2 together. If you think you need all 3 to make it to combat with the Demon Prince, you're going to basically just jam them all together in like a square and walk at them on that other flank, because they're all speed 10. So you're just going to run that unit the other direction. It's like a 5 objective mission. And you're basically just going to literally walk at your opponent with the Terminators with -1 to hit and T6. And you're going to really, really bank on them surviving. And honestly, some armies pass this damage check, which is heartbreaking sometimes, but Guard couldn't do it. World Eaters were the only one to kill all 10 Terminators. So that T6 and that -1 to hit adds up a lot, especially if you get into cover or something. They're still just a durable body, and they're OBSEC. You end up in their deployment zone by the end of the game. You might spend a turn, 1 or 2 turns running, depending if you've got shots. Maybe a drone. I popped the strat to make for 2 CP to put it on my Warlord's Contagion on the drone, and then just run the drone to get it on something, and then have 32 shots, hitting on 2s, exploding 6s, reroll 1s from the Prince if he's still in range. That's actually pretty good normally. It really helped in the Guard matchup specifically, because you just got to pick up like 2 or 3 Guardsman squads a turn. Like, I know that's not statistical, but you do enough damage. Spread the Sickness was the only secondary I think I took all 5 games. And Fleeing Vectors was taken like 3 or 4 times and always scored a 15 on Fleeing Vectors. That secondary is nuts now, because it's every time you kill 7 models in either player's turn with a Plague weapon, it's or any weapon, it's 3 points. And then if you do it with a Plague weapon, it's 3 points. And then if they fail morale, it's 2 points, and then 3 points if they do it. And it's player turn. So you can get 12 in 1 round if you're in melee with a melee army. I think that was one of the most impactful things about. I think Fleeing Vectors is insane now with Plague Burst Crawlers and stuff, and AOC being gone.
So with that, let's dive into the matchups that list played against that brought it to its 5-0 record. Round 1 was against Conrad Ekman and his Creations of Bile. This list was bringing a Lord Discordant on Hellstalker, a Master of Possession, Dark Apostle, and Winged Demon Prince with Golax of the Decayed and Twisted Regeneration to keep him going for a while. To hold down objectives, it had 3 units of Legionaries and a Cultist squad, and then a huge brick of Chaos Terminators with Mark of Slaanesh and the Black Rune of Damnation. This is a classic staple of most Chaos Space Marine lists. It gives you an enormous central fulcrum that you can focus all of your defensive technology on, giving them Illusory Supplication from the Dark Apostle, Delightful Agonies from the Master of Possession, and stacking that on top of the Black Rune of Damnation. And again, they have a 2+ save and have easy access to light cover, meaning that they have solid saving throws throughout the entire time. They don't have the same charge defense that the Foul Blightspawn gives the Death Guard list, but even if you charge into them, they do fight on death on a 4+ thanks to that Creations of Bile subfaction ability. Backing that up is also 3 units of Possessed and some Venom Crawlers to add a little bit of ranged punch and buff the Psychers.
It kind of was just a match where we I kind of just committed everything. Turn 1, I just walked up, positioned everything to fight over a middle objective. It was, I think it was Mission 21 Abandoned Sanctuaries, where it was the no pregame move. Basically, I walked up, he walked up, I charged him with everything, shot him with everything, and killed the Terminator brick because he failed to get his Feel No Pain off. So I Plague Skulled it, I smited, got a few 7s, charged it with my Terminator brick, 2 drones, and shot it with 3 Plague Burst Crawlers and the 32 bolt shots. And was able to drop the brick by like 3 wounds, I think. I just overkilled it, like just enough to kill it. And at that point, the game's basically locked because I've got to fight last character on the middle point with a 10-man Terminator brick that's untouched because I charged him. And the interrupt just wasn't worth it because he's like, I've only got 3 guys, I might as well to hit. Like, it was just a bad spot.
That seems like a rough one because, especially this list in particular, is like really relying on those 5 model Possessed squads. And those being half damage against Death Guard. It's like real sad for them. They hit like Plague Marines and they bounce.
That did happen on the flanks. He had 3 Marine squads, I believe, and 3, what are they called? Possessed squads walking up the flanks, and they just like kind of bounced in these 5-man Plague Marines I had on the flank. And I had a Plague Burst Crawler on each side, and then one like in the middle being kind of flexible. And after that, after I killed the Terminators, every turn I just picked. I literally think I killed all of the Possessed turn 2 after I killed the Terminator brick. And then he just didn't have like anything to deal with Plague Marines and a 10-man Terminator brick walking at him.
In round 2, Garrett played against David Stein and his Adeptus Custodes. This was an Emperor's Chosen Custodes list, bringing a Shield Captain on Dawn Eagle Jetbike, Trajan Valoris, a Presidium Shield Custodian Guard squad to hold down objectives, and a Sagittarum Custodian squad to add a little bit of ranged punch, alongside 2 individual Alaris Custodians, a Vixillus Praetor, 2 units of Venatari, with kinetic destroyers and their shields to make them a little bit tankier, and 3 units of 3 Virtus Praetors. Really back to the OG style of Adeptus Custodes, where we just put our faith in the bicycles and hope for the best.
He went first. I kind of planted myself aggressively because it was the 6th of, it was mission 11, where it's the control 1, control 2, control more, so you only have to control 2 points. He basically failed. He wanted to go for a long bomb charge, like a 10-inch charge. And I reminded him before he even moved that I'm inexorable. But he's like, I'll make you burn the CP. And then I let him attempt the charge, didn't spend the CP. I'm like, if you want to go into this 10-man Terminator brick, I will welcome the charge. The Melted Bikers killed 1 drone, I think. He failed the charge, and then I made 2 9-inch charge with drones on my turn, and was able to charge the bikes that failed to charge into my Terminator brick. And I got to kill, I think, all but 1 bike. He baited a 9-inch charge, and I was like, I'm just gonna go for it. I have a reroll. I will attempt to get 1 in, because I'm like, oh, okay, it's like decent damage. And the other one's like sitting on the edge of a point, like with Heroic Intervene, so if he comes over next turn, I'll intervene if he wants to go for my 2 units of OBSEC on the point.
If you want to talk about profile matchups, that Flesh Mower is like literally perfect against the bikes, right? Because you want to be Strength 7, AP 2, 2 damage, and that's exactly what it has.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Perfect. It lined up so well on him, and as I think I downed 2 of the bikes in shooting from Plague Burst Crawlers, like just mortars and stuff. I think I got one or 2 in line of sight for their side guns, but he was in dense, so it didn't really matter too much. But I think I killed 2 bikes in shooting, and I killed the rest in melee, and there was 1 normal bike standing on like 3 wounds, and then his character bike wasn't in combat. So he just had Trajan, the character, 2 units of Atari, guard, and the unit in the backfield, and I had everything but a drone. Trajan walks up, attacks a drone, flubs to kill the drone attacks back, puts Trajan to lethal, he puffs Momentum Shackle to 0 the damage, goes to 1 wound left, drone explodes the next turn and dies and kills Trajan with it. Because he failed the 4-up Feel No Pain. And then the bike captain killed the other drone and moved forward, and then the prince went and got his backfield objective. I believe my Plagueburst Crawlers got in combat with the bike captain, like just got into combat with my Plagueburst Crawlers. And I just shot him in combat. I just like used the side guns, and I inevitably got like a 4 to hit, and then like wounded, and then he failed his Feel No Pains enough because he was in combat with 2 Plagueburst Crawlers to tie them up for shooting, and eventually I just was able to kill him. I don't remember if he was alive for 1 or 2. I think it was 2 turns he lived. The Minotauri just like could not do anything to the Terminator bricks, and he just couldn't hold the backfield objective from the Terminator, or not the Terminator, the Demon Prince that was just in his backfield now. That's how that game got locked out pretty good. I scored so terribly in this game because I took Mental Interrogate, and I just killed him too quickly, / he hit his banner so aggressively, basically took him out of the fight like 2 or 3 turns to just deny me the chance at mental, because Trajan died tragically, and so did the bike captain died really early on. Like, I think the bike captain died like turn 3. So it was just the dense banner that was left. So I actually scored a 3 on Mental Interrogate. So that felt miserable.
Round 3 was against Jared Bruce and his Astra Militarum. This is the first game that we have against the Astra Militarum menace for these Death Guard, and this list is a pretty interesting one. It's bringing a Commissar alongside a Cadian command squad with the Finial of the Nemerdesh First and an Ogren bodyguard, a pretty classic combination to give you that enormous benefit of the Finial, to ignore damage ignores, damage reduction, and any attack modifiers for core units within 6 of that unit. The Ogren bodyguard can also be comboed out to be very unkillable in a Cadian command squad, with potentially damage reduction and vulnerable saves, a damage ignore roll, and transhuman all stacked on top of that one guy who can take all the damage for the squad and then regenerate. We also have a Death Rider squadron commander, Lord Solar Leontis himself, and a Primaris Psyker to add a little bit of defensive technology. Backing that up is a lot of Death Corps of Krieg. We're all in on the Kriegsmen today, with 3 units of them alongside 2 standard infantry squads, 3 Krieg combat engineers, as well as a Barbican's Key Kazarkin squad. Although importantly, we aren't using Born soldiers today, so we don't have the full Kazarkin combo active, as I've talked about in my previous video about this unit. There's also an Engine Seer in the list, a unit of Death Riders, a pair of Leman Russ battle tanks, and a battery of 3 Rapier laser destroyers. The Rapier laser destroyers are a little bit of an odd Forge World unit. They do get the platoon keyword in the new codex, and so while they aren't core, they do get a couple of the synergies that you would normally expect from units like it. For 85 points, each one of these units is rocking 3 Strength 10 AP4 D3 plus 3 damage laser shots. However, they're only at that Guardsman level ballistic skill 4. At only a 36-inch range as well, they're also not the longest range things in the game, and they only move 4 inches, meaning that they're relatively easy to outmaneuver.
Game 3 is where things get very, 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 very interesting. So this one is mission Data Scry Salvage. Yes, so this one was very interesting. This was on GW Layout 3, and it's in the worst possible way you can think. If you look at it, there is nothing to block line of sight down the middle 4 objectives. So it's literally just a line down the middle of the table. So this was against Guard. He wasn't running like the tier 1 meta list, but he had some like cool tech. I ended up going first. He deployed, you do need to kind of deploy on the line for Data Scry Salvage, because the far objectives on the edges are actually like weirdly hard to get to if you don't deploy on the line, because of how the zones are and how big a base is and how deep you can go into a corner. So he basically bunkered up on the right side, put a few stragglers on the far side, on my left side, and I was like, So I put my Terminator brick down there and jammed it based on the left side, and jammed basically everything else except for 1 other Plague Marine squad, all to the right. And I just ran at him turn 1. And was able to put a Leman Russ down to a few wounds with my crawlers. I don't really do much by turn 1. I probably just walk up, get onto points. I roll like a 6 in advance for the Terminators. They get really far, so does my characters. They just all move up, basically. I did bait my backfield with 1 Plagueburst Crawler and 2 characters behind it, and I did leave him a spot for his 1 Castrican unit to go, because he had the teleport upgrade, and he decided to teleport to go get 6 Assassinate, because I really was like, man, like, there's no way he takes this, right? And it's just free to, like, kind of sit back there and do Day's Dry and spread turn 1 with those 2 units. And I was like, I mean, if he wants to dedicate the Castrican to killing these 2 models and hurting the tank, it's totally worth it. And it worked like a charm. He took the bait, he flew back behind me, he shot, did not kill the tank, killed the 2 characters. That eliminated the Castrican from the rest of the game. That was his only unit of Castrican. And then he just kept having to throw stuff into the Terminator's units to try to stop them from just scoring, like, outscoring primary and stuff. He really tried to dedicate to kill the plague drones and the 3 crawlers, and he got so very unlucky with killing these crawlers that he left one on like 1 or 2 wounds. He shot all of the rapier batteries into a drone, and it lived. He just could not get these drones down, basically. Few things staying alive that are like 9 wounds, or I can just convert the tank up to full with the strat, or count as on top bracket with the strat. And I was able to, in that turn, I killed both of his Leman Russes, killed like almost all of his infantry because I was able to finally shoot with my Terminators. And then I spent the rest of the game basically just chasing him down. And finally on turn 5, I chased him down and got the Terminator brick to come across the table finally. And I was able to just catch him with enough stuff and actually table him at the top of 5, which was my top of 5, yeah.
And that brought us to Elijah Cooper's Astra Militarum, a little bit more of a classic build from this faction. This one was using the Born Soldiers Regimental Doctrine, alongside Acadian Command Squad with that Finial, Lord Solar Leontis, a Death Corps Marshal, and a Tank Commander upgraded with Gatekeeper. This list had Acadian Shock Troopers, as well as a Kazarkin team, some Ratlings for forward deploy, Sly Marbo, the Great Man himself, alongside 3 individual Scout Sentinels, 3 units of 3 mortars, alongside a brace of 4 Leman Russ in the heavy support slot, and a Chimera to caddy around some of those infantry.
This was a 18 inches apart mission. I deployed so aggressively. I jammed the Terminators on the line, jammed the drones on the line, jammed everything on the line, basically, and said, I am going to walk at you. He's like, do you have Ryan charge? I said, no. I'm going to walk at you and hope to God I survive. And I'm like, I'm really hoping to go first. Because if we go first, we have a game on our hands. If I go second, it gets rough. So he goes first. I've never seen a man with so much firepower only kill 3 drones and like 5 Foxwalkers. He put everything into the drones, was able to kill all the drones from everything. Also got baited by like some free points going into the backfield, killing like a unit. He was gonna try to like kill a unit of Foxwalkers, hurt a tank, and kill like a character, like the Tally Man. And he whiffed everything, even with rerolls from the dude on horse. Everything, he just whiffed his mortal wound Castrican bomb. Then he only killed my 3 plague drones turn 1. He was trying to kill the Demon Prince with the Vanquisher gun. 1 drone lived at 1 right when he was about to go fire the Vanquisher, so he ended up having to shoot the Vanquisher at the Plagueverse Crawler he shot with the Castrican and did 5 mortals to. And didn't get any other damage through because I rolled straight 5s on saves. He rolled a 1 to wound. He spent a CP and he rolled a 2 to wound and failed to wound with the Vanquisher. And so this like 6 wound or 7 wound tank just gets to live now. He makes a Castrican charge into Poxwalkers, and that fight goes on the rest of the game. And inevitably the Poxwalkers win. I walk up with my Demon Prince and 2 casters and the 10-man he didn't shoot the Terminator brick at all. They walk up. The fire hose guy runs to go shoot a tank, and the Demon Prince goes over to like. So in that psychic phase, we managed to drop a Leman Russ because I rolled an 11, then rolled a 6 on damage, so it was D6 plus 1, so it was 7 damage from 1 smite. The other 2 smites helped finish off a tank, threw a Plague Skull at a tank or whatever, and I think that's where we did 4 mortals. And then the 3 Plague Bursts managed to down 2 Leman Russes. So his second Castrican bomb gets out turn 2, shoots, whiffs again, like the most unlucky Castrican bombs I've ever seen. And at that point, we are just so ahead walking at him. We were almost in his deployment zone with the Terminators because they made their charge and killed the tank. And all he basically has left is a bunch of guardsmen and 3 sentinels. Turn 3, we walk into his deployment zone and we just start killing his mortars and everything and just tying up everything. And then the game kind of just ends with me just having more primary, having just passive secondaries like spread, fleeing, and what was the last one I took? Assassinate. I just like got to walk through them basically. Genuinely do not know if I just got lucky that game or what. I think that is a bad matchup for me, but we are now at a point where I've almost tabled 2 guard players. I still look back at this game and kind of remember them as a fever dream, and everything just everything coming up heads for Death Guard.
And with that win, that brought Garrett to the finals game against World Eaters. This list is a very strong World Eaters build, coming out of the World Eaters sub-faction specifically, not the Disciples of the Red Angel. This gives us access to Lord Invocatus and his warlord trait Road of 8 Bloody Steps that gives pre-game moves to the army. This allows it, if it goes first, to absolutely cripple its opponent with an almost unstoppable Alpha Strike, since it's extremely difficult to prevent those models that are pre-game moving from getting close to enemies, given that they can't be naturally screened. The list did include Lord Invocatus alongside a World Eaters Juggernaut Lord, 4 units of Khorne Berserkers in Rhinos, 3 individual Chaos Spawn to grant Blood Tithe points, and then the maximum number of 8-bound that can be played, 3 units of standard 8-bound, as well as 3 units of 3 exalted 8-bound.
Thinking about this game, I'm like, man, World Eaters have the best scoring, and I either am going to crush this guy or get crushed. There's no way for me to like score enough points here without taking something that's like I'm putting him in the dirt. And I've already taken no prisoners for 14. Because it can score max 14 against this list. Spread the Sickness, another one I felt I could get 15 on pretty easily. I only ended up getting an 11 on that one, spoilers. And then I took that one.
Despoiled Ground, is that
yeah, that's the one I took. Feels miserably bad. But if it works really well, I guess. But it normally feels terrible. I think
definitely like the win more kind of objective, right?
I've literally never taken it in my life, and it almost didn't work out. So I guess I'll get into the story time real fast. He goes first, and I deployed everything on. I'm like, I'm going for broke. I'm going to get in position and do everything right turn 1. So you better go first. And he has Lord Invocatus with the 2 5-man units of 8-bound, and all 3 of the exalted 8-bound are in strategic reserves. He goes for the charge. Does not move his Lord Invocatus, and he's going to make a 5-inch charge, and he fails it with a reroll on one of the units. Yeah, this is the massive break point of the game, we think. Me and him both agree that if this charge makes it, the game is probably over turn 1, and there's almost no need to play the match out. But he fails this 4-inch charge because he did not move his Invocatus up for the bonus 2 movement, which would have made it a like a double 1s charge would make it, because he moves 22 then, I'm on the line. So he only needs like a 4. Fails the charge with that unit. The other one makes it, thankfully, but it just was into some 2 units of Plague Marines, and he like killed them for free. I retaliate my Plague Marine Crawlers, shockingly very good at killing 8-bound. And basically the rest of that game, we just trade and trade and trade, but because that unit didn't make it, wasn't able to hurt the 10-man brick, I basically got away from most of the game of just shooting him dead. I was inexorable, so I got to do the -2 to charge strat, and just really put these exalted 8-bounds at bay. I only ended up getting 11 spread. I got 44 primary, I believe is what it was. And then I got 15 and 14 on the other secondaries. That just was good enough. I actually managed to table all but the Rhino in the backfield on his home objective. But he played his tail off, and I think at the end of the day, I'm extremely lucky, and I do think I played it correct to a degree. But man, that last game, if he just made that charge turn 1, as a gesture, I went and told him like, hey, pick any prize you want, and I'll secure it for you no matter what, because like we both wanted this Horus Ascended model they had as like one of the prizes you get to pick, and we ended up trading that out. So that felt good, but I really think that if we play that matchup again, I lose probably 7 out of the 10 games, or he's unbelievably favored in, if not more.
Now, do you think that, like, how much of that is the role to go first, right? Invocatus is significantly less powerful if you're going second, right? So if you, if you're able to push out and to screen out any of the 8-bound from coming in, or just shoot them as they move up the table, like, does that switch the matchup potentially, or?
I think it does. I think it helps a lot. I think it helps a ridiculous amount if we get to shoot and whittle down the 8-bound and stuff going first. The problem is, even if you whittle down the 8-bound, they even like even if it's a 5-man unit and you kill 3 or 2, they still absolutely destroy anything they touch. They're like 7 attacks, 6 whatever it is on the charge, like strength 7, sergeants like strength 8 against vehicles or whatever. They just hit hard enough to kill whatever they need to, even without the full unit.
So huge congratulations to Garrett for taking down the event. Regardless how fortunes went, Death Guard right now is looking a little bit sad, so doing it with Death Guard is still extremely impressive. I should also mention that Folger Pyle, another member of the Watchers in the Dark YouTube channel, also took second in this event, also with a 5-0 record. So these guys just be sweeping GTs all up in here. You should go check out their YouTube channel at Watchers in the Dark. Highly recommend it. They do a lot of awesome content, and they have some videos about their lists and their wins at the Cagbash event that I'm sure they can go into greater detail about the specifics of.
Yeah, so we are Watchers in the Dark. We are a competitive group. We've got some of the best players in the world, and very good friends with a lot of different communities. So we like to have a lot of guests on, mostly Death or Glory, because they're so close to us. But you can check us out at Watching in the Dark on YouTube. We do shorts, combat analysis, list analysis, and a bunch of live gameplay. So come check us out.
Again, links for them down in the video description and pinned comment. And I'll also put links down there to Ironweld, who's currently sponsoring the video. Big thanks to them for supporting, and thanks to you for watching all the way to the end. Thanks as well to everyone who supports the channel, either over on YouTube at youtube.com/TacticalTortoise, YouTube channel members, and Twitch subscribers. All you people are awesome, and I love you. Remember to keep it classy, folks, and have happy wargaming.